The sprawling metropolis of New Kepler buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy conducted their daily business. Among the towering crystal spires and floating platforms, Dr. Sarah Chen made her way through the alien marketplace, her medical scanner beeping softly as it detected various life forms around her. As the only human physician on this distant world, she had grown accustomed to the strange sights and sounds of interstellar commerce. The Zephyrian delegation had been one of her most challenging cases yet. These ethereal beings, with their translucent blue skin and elongated limbs, possessed advanced technology that could manipulate matter at the molecular level. Their society prized efficiency above all else, viewing emotional attachments as weaknesses that hindered progress. Sarah had treated several of their kind for stress-related ailments, though they refused to acknowledge the psychological component of their conditions. As she rounded a corner near the waste disposal sector, a pitiful sound caught her attention. Hidden behind a cluster of discarded energy cells, something was whimpering. Sarah approached cautiously, her scanner indicating a life form in severe distress. What she found made her heart sink with a mixture of anger and compassion. Curled among the refuse was a creature unlike anything she had encountered before. It resembled a large feline about the size of a small lion, but with iridescent fur that shifted between deep purples and silvery blues. Its 6 legs were tucked beneath its trembling body, and delicate wing-like appendages sprouted from its shoulders, though they appeared too weak to support flight. Most striking were its eyes, large luminous orbs that held an intelligence that seemed almost human in its depth of suffering. The creature's condition was dire. Its once beautiful fur was matted and dull, patches missing entirely to reveal angry red welts beneath. Strange pulsing lumps moved visibly under its skin, and a foul odor emanated from open sores that dotted its body. Sarah's medical scanner went wild, detecting multiple parasitic organisms unlike anything in her extensive xenobiology database. She knelt slowly, extending her hand toward the suffering creature. "Easy there, beautiful," she whispered, her voice carrying the gentle tone she used with all frightened patients. "I'm here to help." The creature's eyes focused on her with startling clarity. It made a sound that was part purr, part sob, pressing its head weakly against her palm. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as she realized this wasn't just an animal. There was a profound intelligence behind those luminous eyes, a personality crying out for help and understanding. Her scanner revealed the full horror of the creature's condition. Dozens of different parasitic species had taken up residence throughout its body. Some fed on its blood, others on its nervous system. Several appeared to be slowly consuming its organs from within. Most disturbing of all, the parasites seemed to be working in concert, creating a symbiotic network that was keeping the creature alive just long enough to serve as a breeding ground for their offspring. Sarah's hands shook as she administered a mild sedative to ease the creature's pain. As it relaxed slightly, she noticed something that made her gasp. Around its neck, partially hidden by matted fur, was a collar of unmistakably Zephyrian design. The smooth, opalescent material pulsed with faint energy signatures, and embedded within it were what appeared to be monitoring devices. This creature had been someone's companion, someone's beloved pet. The Zephyrians, despite their claims of emotional detachment, had clearly formed bonds with these beings. But when the parasitic infection had taken hold, they had simply abandoned their companion rather than seek treatment. To them, the creature had become inefficient, a burden to be discarded. As Sarah gently lifted the creature, she was shocked by how light it had become. The parasites had consumed much of its muscle mass, leaving it a shadow of what it must have once been. Yet even in its weakened state, it tried to purr, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Don't worry," Sarah murmured as she carried it toward her clinic. "Humanity doesn't abandon family, even when they're not our own species. We're going to figure this out together." The creature seemed to understand her words, its eyes brightening slightly. As they left the refuse area behind, Sarah noticed several Zephyrians watching from a distance. Their expressions were unreadable, but she caught something in their posture that might have been shame. They had watched their companion suffer and had chosen the easy path of abandonment. Sarah's clinic came into view, a modest building that served the medical needs of various species. As she pushed through the doors, her AI assistant immediately began scanning the creature, its sensors working overtime to catalog the extent of the infection. Recommendation: Immediate quarantine and euthanasia, the AI announced in its emotionless voice. Parasitic load is beyond recovery parameters for known treatment protocols. Override that recommendation, Sarah said firmly, settling the creature onto her examination table. We're not giving up on anyone today. The creature's eyes met hers again, and she saw something that made her more determined than ever. Hope. Despite everything it had endured, despite being abandoned by those it had trusted, this remarkable being still had hope, and Sarah Chen was going to make sure that hope was not misplaced. As she began her preliminary examination, Sarah realized she was embarking on the most challenging case of her career. The parasites were unlike anything she had studied, their biology alien and complex, but she had something the Zephyrians lacked: the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat when a life was at stake. The creature settled into the soft bedding Sarah provided, its breathing steadying for the first time in what must have been weeks. As Sarah began analyzing the parasitic samples under her microscope, she whispered a promise that would drive her through the difficult days ahead. I don't know your name, beautiful, but I promise you this: no being deserves to suffer alone. We're going to fight this together, and we're going to win. The first week of treatment proved more challenging than Sarah had anticipated. Her patient, whom she had begun calling Luna due to the creature's moon-like luminous eyes, responded well to basic supportive care. Intravenous fluids helped combat dehydration, and carefully balanced nutrition began to restore some strength to its weakened body. However, the parasites proved to be far more complex than any pathogen in human medical literature. Sarah spent sleepless nights hunched over her research station, analyzing tissue samples and studying the intricate life cycle of Luna's unwanted inhabitants. What she discovered was both fascinating and horrifying. The parasites weren't simply random infections. They formed an interconnected ecosystem within Luna's body, each species playing a specific role in maintaining the others. The primary parasites were neural feeders, thin worm-like creatures that had threaded themselves throughout Luna's nervous system. They fed on bioelectrical energy, which explained why Luna often seemed confused or disoriented. Secondary parasites lived in the bloodstream, filtering nutrients before they could reach vital organs. A third group had taken residence in Luna's digestive system, essentially stealing every meal the creature consumed. Most insidious were the reproduction coordinators, larger parasites that seemed to regulate the entire ecosystem, ensuring that no single species consumed so much that Luna would die quickly. They wanted their host alive for as long as possible to maximize breeding opportunities. It's like they've turned Luna into a living nursery, Sarah muttered to herself as she reviewed the latest scans. The sophistication of the parasitic network suggested this wasn't a natural occurrence. Someone or something had engineered these creatures to work together with terrifying efficiency. Her AI assistant chimed softly. Dr. Chen, you have a visitor requesting consultation. Sarah looked up from her microscope to find a tall Zephyrian standing in her clinic's doorway. Unlike the flowing, ethereal garments typical of their species, this individual wore practical work clothes that suggested a technical profession. Most surprising of all, the Zephyrians' usual composure seemed strained, their translucent features showing what could only be described as anxiety. I am Zix 9471, the visitor announced, their voice carrying harmonic overtones that made human speech sound flat by comparison. I request permission to observe your treatment of the discarded specimen. Sarah bristled at the clinical terminology. Luna isn't a specimen. Luna is a patient with a name and feelings. The Zephyrian's head tilted slightly, processing this distinction. The creature possesses a designation. This is unexpected. May I inquire as to your reasoning for this emotional attachment? It's not attachment, it's respect, Sarah replied, checking Luna's vitals on her monitoring equipment. The creature was sleeping peacefully for the first time since arrival, its breathing steady and deep. Every conscious being deserves dignity, especially when they're suffering. Zix 9471 moved closer to the examination table, their large eyes studying Luna with an intensity that suggested more than casual scientific interest. This particular specimen, creature, was my research partner for 3 solar cycles. The infection manifested during our study of parasitic resistance in various species. Sarah felt her anger flare. You studied parasitic resistance and then abandoned Luna when the experiment went wrong? The infection was not part of our research, ZIX-9471 said quickly. We were investigating natural immunity responses when Luna became infected with wild parasites. The contamination source remains unknown. When traditional treatments proved ineffective, the logical response was termination and disposal to prevent spread. The logical response was to try harder, Sarah shot back. No one gets to decide that a life isn't worth saving just because it's inconvenient. ZIX-9471 stood in silence for a long moment, watching Luna's chest rise and fall. Your species' emotional responses are often criticized as inefficient by galactic medical communities. Yet you have achieved progress where our advanced techniques failed. This presents a paradox worth investigating. Sarah realized this might be an opportunity rather than an interruption. What can you tell me about Luna's species? Their biology, their natural defenses, anything that might help? The Zephyrian accessed a datapad, its surface glowing with complex symbols. Luna belongs to the Kythera species, native to the Outer Rim territories. They possess enhanced regenerative capabilities and complex neural networks that allow for limited telepathic communication with bonded companions. Their wing structures contain specialized organs that process atmospheric toxins, making them highly valued as biological air filtration systems. As ZIX-9471 spoke, Sarah noticed Luna's eyes fluttering open. The creature's gaze immediately found the Zephyrian, and Sarah was surprised to see what looked like recognition and even affection in those luminous orbs. Luna made a soft trilling sound, its weakened voice carrying obvious emotion. Luna remembers you, Sarah observed, watching the interaction carefully. ZIX-9471's typical Zephyrian composure cracked slightly. Kythera formed strong social bonds. Luna often shared emotional states through tactile contact during our research sessions. This companionship proved beneficial for data collection accuracy. Sarah caught something in the Zephyrian's voice, a note of what humans might call fondness. You care about Luna, don't you? That's why you're really here. Emotional attachment compromises professional judgment, ZIX-9471 stated, but their eyes never left Luna's face. However, I find myself curious about your unconventional treatment approaches. Luna struggled to lift its head, extending one paw toward its former companion. ZIX-9471 hesitated, then gently touched the offered paw with their elongated fingers. The moment they made contact, both beings' eyes brightened noticeably. Fascinating, ZIX-9471 whispered. Luna's neural activity has increased significantly. The telepathic connection remains active despite parasitic interference. Sarah watched this reunion with growing understanding. The parasites aren't just feeding on Luna's body, they're feeding on emotional energy too. That's why Luna got worse after being abandoned. The separation from bonded companions is literally starving Luna's healing abilities. She pulled up Luna's latest scans, comparing them to readings taken during ZIX-9471's visit. The difference was remarkable. Brain activity had increased by 30%, and several parasitic colonies showed signs of reduced activity. If emotional connection strengthens Luna's natural defenses, Sarah said, her mind racing with possibilities, then isolation is exactly the wrong treatment. Luna needs social bonds to fight this infection. ZIX-9471 stared at the data, their analytical mind struggling with implications that challenged everything their species believed about efficiency and emotional detachment. You suggest that feelings serve a biological function beyond mere chemical responses? I'm suggesting that connection isn't weakness, it's survival, Sarah replied. And if that's true, then Luna has a much better chance of recovery than anyone thought possible. Luna managed a weak but unmistakable purr, its eyes moving between Sarah and ZIX-9471 with an expression that seemed almost hopeful. For the first time since beginning treatment, Sarah felt genuine optimism about their chances. With ZIX-9471's reluctant agreement to assist in Luna's treatment, Sarah found herself developing the most unconventional medical protocol of her career. Traditional antiparasitic medications had proven useless against the engineered ecosystem living within Luna's body. Every time they eliminated one species, the others adapted to fill the vacant ecological niche, often becoming more aggressive in the process. The human approach to medicine focuses heavily on elimination of threats, ZIX-9471 observed as they reviewed failed treatment attempts. Perhaps this strategy is insufficient for a problem of this complexity. Sarah nodded, studying microscopic images of the parasitic network. We've been thinking like exterminators when we should be thinking like ecosystem managers. These parasites maintain balance among themselves. What if we could shift that balance in Luna's favor instead of trying to destroy everything at once? The breakthrough came when Sarah noticed something peculiar in Luna's blood work. During periods of positive social interaction, when Zix9471 visited or when Sarah spent extended time providing comfort, Luna's immune system produced unique antibodies that seemed to target specific parasitic communication pathways. The creatures weren't just feeding on Luna's body. They were interfering with the neurochemical processes that enabled emotional bonding. They're disrupting Luna's ability to form connections, Sarah realized. That's how they maintain control. Without strong social bonds, Luna's species can't access their full regenerative capabilities. Working around the clock, Sarah developed a three-pronged treatment strategy that would have been considered radical by any galactic medical standard. First, she began introducing carefully selected beneficial microorganisms to compete with the parasites for resources. These friendly bacteria, modified from Earth species known for their aggressive colonization properties, began establishing their own territories within Luna's digestive system. The second component involved stimulating Luna's natural telepathic abilities through sustained emotional contact. Sarah arranged for Zix9471 to spend several hours each day maintaining physical connection with Luna, despite the Zephyrian's discomfort with such prolonged emotional exposure. During these sessions, Luna's brain activity increased dramatically, and the creature began producing more of the specialized antibodies. The third and most controversial element was Sarah's decision to introduce controlled stressors that would force the parasitic ecosystem to expend energy on adaptation rather than reproduction. She carefully calibrated environmental changes, slight temperature fluctuations, modified atmospheric composition, subtle electromagnetic fields, that kept the parasites constantly adjusting their strategies. This approach defies standard medical protocols, Sarah's AI assistant warned repeatedly. Introducing additional biological agents and environmental stressors significantly increases risk factors. Sometimes you have to break the rules to save a life, Sarah replied. Monitoring Luna's response to the treatment, the creature had begun showing signs of improvement within days. Its fur was growing back in patches, the angry welts were healing, and most importantly, its eyes had regained much of their natural luminosity. Zix9471 proved to be an invaluable ally. Despite their initial reluctance to acknowledge emotional connections, their scientific knowledge of Kythera physiology, combined with their genuine bond with Luna, provided insights that no medical textbook could offer. During their daily contact sessions, Zix9471 began sharing memories and experiences through the telepathic link, giving Luna's healing mind something positive to focus on. I am experiencing unprecedented emotional resonance, Zix9471 admitted during one of their sessions. Luna's distress creates corresponding anxiety in my consciousness. Previously, I dismissed this as psychological weakness, but the physiological benefits are undeniable. Sarah watched as Luna's parasitic load continued to decrease. The friendly bacteria were winning territory battles throughout the digestive system. The enhanced immune response was targeting parasitic reproduction centers with increasing accuracy. Most encouraging of all, Luna had begun trying to use its wing structures again, the delicate appendages fluttering weakly, but with obvious intent. However, the treatment was not without setbacks. On the 10th day, Luna experienced a severe parasitic counterattack. The remaining organisms had apparently coordinated a last-ditch effort to maintain control, concentrating their forces in Luna's nervous system. The creature convulsed violently, its telepathic link with Zix9471 becoming chaotic and painful for both participants. Neural activity is approaching dangerous levels, the AI warned, as Luna's vital signs fluctuated wildly. Recommend immediate sedation and isolation protocols. No, Sarah said firmly, though her hands shook as she monitored Luna's condition. Isolation is what got Luna into this mess. We need more connection, not less. She made a decision that went against every safety protocol she had ever learned. Instead of separating Luna from Zix9471 to protect the Zephyrian from telepathic feedback, she encouraged them to strengthen their mental link. Luna needs an anchor, she explained. something stable to hold on to while the parasites are fighting back. Zix-9471's eyes widened with what might have been fear, but they placed both hands on Luna's head without hesitation. "If this process damages my neural pathways, then we'll figure out how to fix those too," Sarah replied. "But right now, Luna needs you to be brave." The next few hours were the longest of Sarah's medical career. Luna's body fought a microscopic war while Zix-9471 served as a telepathic lifeline, their own vital signs showing the strain of maintaining mental contact during the creature's crisis. Sarah worked frantically to support both patients, adjusting medication levels and monitoring for signs of permanent damage. As dawn broke over New Kepler, Luna's convulsions finally subsided. The parasitic counterattack had failed, leaving the remaining organisms weakened and disorganized. For the first time since treatment began, Luna lifted its head under its own power and looked directly at Sarah with clear, focused eyes. "Thank you," Luna said, the words forming clearly in Sarah's mind through the telepathic link it now shared with both its companions. The voice was gentle and musical, unmistakably intelligent and deeply grateful. Zix-9471 stared in amazement. "Luna has developed sufficient neural clarity to communicate with non-bonded species. This should be impossible with any parasitic load remaining." Sarah smiled, tears of relief streaming down her face. Maybe it's not about eliminating every threat. Maybe it's about giving someone the strength to overcome them. She gently stroked Luna's newly regrown fur, marveling at its returning iridescence. "We still have work to do, but the worst is over. You're going to be okay, Luna." As Luna began to purr, a sound like crystal bells in harmony, Sarah realized they had accomplished something that would change xenobiology forever. They had proven that emotional connection wasn't just a pleasant addition to medical treatment. It was sometimes the most powerful medicine of all. Luna's recovery accelerated rapidly once the parasitic ecosystem had been disrupted. Within 2 weeks of the crisis, the creature was strong enough to stand and walk around Sarah's clinic, its 6 legs moving with increasing coordination. The wing structures had regained much of their flexibility, and while Luna couldn't yet achieve flight, the appendages served their original purpose of filtering toxins from the air with remarkable efficiency. "The atmospheric quality in your clinic has improved by 47% since Luna's wing function returned," Zix-9471 observed, consulting their ever-present datapad. "Kithera truly are remarkable biological filtration systems." Sarah watched Luna explore the clinic with obvious curiosity, the creature's telepathic voice providing a constant stream of questions and observations. "Everything smells different now," Luna communicated. "Before the world was gray and painful. Now I can sense the life energy in growing things, the electrical patterns in technology, even the emotional states of other beings." The revelation that Luna could perceive emotions directly led to an unexpected development. Other patients began requesting to spend time with Luna during their treatments. A Centaurian trader suffering from depression found that Luna's presence eased their symptoms significantly. A young Andromedan with chronic pain reported reduced discomfort after Luna's telepathic touch. Even the normally stoic crystalline engineers seemed calmer when Luna was nearby. "Luna appears to possess natural empathic healing abilities," Sarah noted in her treatment logs. The parasites weren't just feeding on physical resources. They were suppressing Luna's innate capacity to sense and alleviate suffering in others. News of Luna's recovery began spreading through the interstellar medical community, though not all responses were positive. The Galactic Medical Council issued a formal inquiry into Sarah's irregular treatment protocols, questioning the safety and efficacy of using emotional bonding as a therapeutic tool. Several prominent xenobiologists criticized her methods as unscientific and potentially dangerous. "Dr. Chen's approach lacks proper controls and peer review," declared Dr. Vortex Prime, a renowned crystalline medical researcher. "Emotional variables cannot be quantified or replicated. This makes her results essentially worthless from a scientific standpoint." However, other voices began joining the conversation. Dr. Korvash, an elderly Vulpine physician known for his conservative approach to medicine, surprised everyone by publicly supporting Sarah's methods. "I have observed Dr. Chen's patient firsthand," he announced during a medical conference. "The recovery achieved through her unconventional protocols exceeds anything I have witnessed in 6 decades of Practice. Zix-9471 found themselves in an increasingly uncomfortable position as word of their involvement spread through Zephyrian society. Their people viewed emotional attachment as a dangerous weakness that compromised logical decision-making. Several colleagues suggested that Zix-9471's judgment had been compromised by prolonged exposure to Luna's empathic abilities. The High Council has recommended that I undergo emotional purification treatments. Zix-9471 confided to Sarah during one of their daily sessions with Luna. They believe my attachment to Luna represents a form of mental contamination that requires correction. Luna's distress at this news was immediately apparent to both companions. The creature's fur darkened to deep purples and blues, and its telepathic voice carried unmistakable anxiety.
Zix cannot be changed, Luna communicated urgently.
Our bond helps both of us think more clearly, not less. The feelings make us stronger, not weaker. Sarah felt her protective instincts surge. Tell your High Council that Luna is still recovering and requires continued contact with bonded companions for optimal healing. Medical necessity overrides cultural preferences. The situation became more complex when a delegation of Zephyrian medical officials arrived to evaluate Luna's condition personally. Led by senior healer QX2847, the group examined Luna with typical Zephyrian detachment, their instruments recording every biological function, while completely ignoring the creature's obvious personality and intelligence. The specimen has achieved acceptable biological parameters, QX2847 announced after their examination. Recovery is sufficient for safe disposal through standard channels. Continued emotional contamination of research personnel is no longer medically justified. Luna's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. The creature's luminous eyes dimmed. Its newly regrown fur became dull and lifeless, and its telepathic voice weakened to barely a whisper. They want to throw me away again, Luna communicated to Sarah. I thought I was safe now. Sarah felt fury building in her chest. Luna is not property to be disposed of. Luna is a sentient being with rights and feelings and the capacity to contribute to society. Emotional attribution to non-sapient species is a well-documented psychological phenomenon among primitive cultures. QX2847 replied dismissively. Your attachment has compromised your professional judgment. Dr. Chen, the specimen will be relocated to appropriate facilities where proper scientific objectivity can be maintained. That evening, as Sarah sat with Luna and Zix-9471 in her clinic, she made a decision that would change all their lives. They're not taking you anywhere, Luna. We're going to fight this together. Zix-9471's translucent features showed surprise. Opposing the medical council's decision could result in loss of your medical license. Dr. Chen, your career would be destroyed. Some things are more important than careers, Sarah replied, gently stroking Luna's head as the creature pressed close to her. Besides, we have something they don't understand. We have proof that emotional connection can achieve medical miracles. Luna's telepathic voice grew stronger, carrying notes of hope and determination. If they want to study empathic healing, I could teach them. But only if they treat me as a person, not a specimen. Sarah smiled, feeling the familiar stubborn determination that had carried her through medical school and into the far reaches of space.
Then that's exactly what we're going to make them do.
We're going to show the galaxy that compassion isn't weakness. It's the most powerful healing force in the universe. As night fell over New Kepler, the three unlikely companions began planning their next move. They had saved Luna's life, but now they needed to save Luna's freedom. And in doing so, they might just revolutionize how the entire galaxy thought about the relationship between emotional connection and medical treatment. Luna's wings fluttered softly in the clinic's filtered air, processing toxins with effortless grace while the creature's mind touched both of its companions with warm gratitude. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The human who refused to give up, the Zephyrian who had learned to embrace feeling, and the Kithra who had discovered that healing others could be just as powerful as being healed. The Galactic Medical Council's hearing was scheduled for the following month, giving Sarah and her allies time to prepare their case. Word of Luna's situation had spread throughout the interstellar community, creating unexpected divisions among various species. While the Crystalline Consortium and Zephyrian Collective maintained that emotional considerations had no place in scientific medicine, Several other civilizations began questioning their own medical practices. Dr. Korvash arrived from the Vulpine homeworld with a team of researchers who had been studying the connection between social bonding and healing in their own species for decades. "We have suppressed our findings for years," he admitted to Sarah. "The galactic medical establishment dismisses any research that cannot be reduced to purely mechanical processes." The Aquarian delegation brought even more surprising support. Their whale-like forms communicated through complex harmonic patterns that carried emotional as well as informational content. "We have always known that healing requires harmony between mind, body, and spirit," their spokesperson sang. "Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to remember what ancient wisdom has always taught." Luna thrived in the attention, though the creature remained cautious around beings who approached with purely scientific interest. The empathic abilities that had been suppressed by the parasites allowed Luna to sense the intentions of visitors immediately. Those who saw Luna as a test subject received polite but distant responses, while those who approached with genuine compassion found themselves engaged in fascinating telepathic conversations. "I can feel the curiosity of the scientists," Luna explained to Sarah during one of their evening talks. "But some of them have walls around their emotions, like Zix used to before we became friends. They think feelings make them weak, so they try to shut them out completely." Zix 9471 had been struggling with their own people's demands for emotional purification. The Zephyrian High Council had threatened to revoke their research credentials if they continued to maintain telepathic contact with Luna. However, something unexpected had happened during their weeks of bonding. Zix 9471's own scientific work had improved dramatically. "My analytical capabilities have increased by 32% since establishing emotional connection with Luna," Zix 9471 reported to Sarah. "Problem-solving efficiency has improved, creative thinking has expanded, and my ability to collaborate with colleagues from other species has enhanced significantly." Sarah documented these improvements carefully, recognizing their potential importance for the upcoming hearing. "You're not becoming less rational," she told Zix 9471. "You're becoming more complete. Emotions aren't the opposite of logic. They're a different kind of information that helps you make better decisions." The most dramatic development came when Luna began working directly with other patients in Sarah's clinic. A young Andromedan engineer had been suffering from a neurological condition that caused chronic pain and motor function problems. Traditional treatments had failed, and the patient was facing permanent disability. "May I try to help?" Luna asked Sarah telepathically. "I can sense the disrupted neural pathways in their brain. The patterns feel similar to what the parasites were doing to me, but smaller and more localized." Sarah hesitated, aware of the enormous risk involved. If Luna's intervention caused any harm, it would destroy their case before the medical council. However, the Andromedan patient, who had overheard Luna's telepathic communication, eagerly consented to the attempt. What followed was unlike anything Sarah had witnessed in her medical career. Luna placed their paws gently on the patient's head and closed their luminous eyes in concentration. Through her monitoring equipment, Sarah watched as Luna's brain activity synchronized with the patient's neural patterns. The creature wasn't just offering empathic support. Luna was somehow mapping the disrupted connections and helping the patient's brain find alternative pathways. "The pain is fading," the Andromedan whispered in amazement. "I can feel my motor control returning." "How is this possible?" Luna's telepathic voice reached both Sarah and the patient simultaneously. "Your species builds beautiful logical structures, but you forgot to include pathways for emotional processing. The blockage was created by old trauma that your mind couldn't categorize properly. I just helped you build a bridge around it." Within hours, the Andromedan had regained full motor function and reported complete elimination of chronic pain. The cure was more than physical. The patient's entire demeanor had changed, becoming more open and emotionally expressive than typical for their species. Word of this healing spread like wildfire through the medical community. Dr. Vortex Prime dismissed it as placebo effect, amplified by telepathic suggestion, but other physicians began requesting consultations with Luna. For their most difficult cases, Sarah found herself overwhelmed with requests for treatment, but she insisted on strict protocols. Luna would only work with patients who approached as equals seeking help, not as test subjects to be studied. Each session required informed consent and the presence of bonded companions to provide emotional stability. The success rate was remarkable. A Centaurian suffering from severe depression experienced complete recovery after Luna helped them process repressed grief from childhood trauma. A group of crystalline engineers with stress-related fractures in their mineral structures found that Luna's empathic presence allowed them to achieve a level of internal harmony that promoted natural healing. Luna isn't just treating symptoms, Sarah realized as she studied the treatment outcomes. Luna is helping patients access their own healing abilities by removing emotional barriers that prevent natural recovery processes. 3 days before the medical council hearing, Senior Healer QX2847 arrived at Sarah's clinic with a large security detail. Dr. Chen, you are ordered to surrender the specimen immediately. Continued unauthorized experimentation violates multiple galactic medical protocols. Luna stepped forward before Sarah could respond, the creature's 6 legs planted firmly and wings spread in a display of determination. I am not a specimen, Luna stated, their telepathic voice reaching everyone present. I am a sentient being who chooses to help others heal. You cannot force me to be something I am not. QX2847's composure cracked slightly. Telepathic communication does not constitute proof of sapience. Many non-sentient species can mimic intelligent behavior patterns. Then test me, Luna challenged, their luminous eyes blazing with intelligence and indignation. Give me any logical problem, any scientific analysis, any creative challenge your species considers proof of sapience. But know this, if I pass your tests, you must acknowledge my right to choose my own path. Sarah watched with pride and anxiety as Luna faced down the Zephyrian authority figures. The creature had grown so much beyond the broken, abandoned being she had found in the refuse pile. Luna had become a powerful force for healing and change, someone willing to fight for the rights of all beings to be treated with dignity and respect. The confrontation was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. 69471 entered the clinic, but they were not alone. Behind them came a delegation of Zephyrian citizens, including several members of the High Council itself. Have come to observe this alleged sapience testing, announced Council member Dix 1129. If the creature can demonstrate true consciousness rather than mere mimicry, we will reconsider our position on its disposal. Luna looked at Sarah, and despite the telepathic connection, the creature's expression was entirely readable through body language alone. Luna was ready to fight for their freedom, but they wanted Sarah's support for whatever came next. Sarah nodded, placing her hand gently on Luna's head. Show them who you are, Luna. Show them that consciousness comes in many forms, and that the capacity to heal others is one of the highest expressions of intelligence in the universe. The most important test of Luna's life was about to begin. The sapience testing took place in Sarah's clinic, which had been hastily converted into an examination chamber under the watchful eyes of multiple galactic medical authorities. Representatives from 7 different species observed as council member. Dix 1129 outlined the testing protocols that would determine Luna's fate. The subject will undergo 3 standard evaluations, Dix 1129 announced. Logical reasoning, creative problem solving, and ethical decision-making. Failure in any category will confirm non-sapient status and justify immediate disposal. Luna stood calmly in the center of the room, their iridescent fur reflecting the various lights of alien recording equipment. Despite the intimidating circumstances, the creature's telepathic voice remained steady and confident. I am ready to prove what you refuse to see, that consciousness is not limited to forms that resemble your own. The first test involved complex mathematical puzzles that would challenge even advanced computer systems. Dix 1129 presented Luna with a series of quantum equations that required understanding of multidimensional space and temporal mechanics. Solve these calculations and explain your reasoning. Luna's eyes closed in concentration, their wing structures fluttering as neural activity accelerated. Within moments, the creature began providing answers that exceeded the accuracy of most artificial intelligence systems. But Luna went further, offering insights into the underlying principles that even surprised the Zephyrian mathematicians present. The equations assume linear temporal progression, Luna explained telepathically. But consciousness exists outside standard time flow. The solutions become more elegant when you factor in observer effect and emotional resonance variables that influence quantum states. Dr. Vortex Prime, who had been observing with obvious skepticism, leaned forward with newfound interest. Emotional resonance variables? That concept has no basis in accepted quantum theory. Perhaps your theories are incomplete, Luna replied gently. When I help patients heal, I can perceive how their emotional states directly influence cellular regeneration and neural pathway formation. Consciousness shapes reality at the quantum level, through mechanisms your instruments cannot measure. The second test required Luna to devise creative solutions to impossible scenarios. Dix 1129 presented a hypothetical situation where multiple species faced extinction due to incompatible environmental needs, and asked Luna to develop a survival strategy that would preserve all forms of life. Luna's response demonstrated not just intelligence, but wisdom that came from deep empathic understanding. Each species in your scenario possesses unique strengths that complement the weaknesses of others. The crystalline beings can create structural foundations in environments too harsh for organic life. The Aquarians can process toxins that would poison other species. The Centaurians can adapt to temperature extremes that others cannot tolerate. The creature outlined a complex symbiotic ecosystem where every species played essential roles in maintaining the environment that supported all the others. It was a solution that none of the observing officials had considered, requiring them to abandon competitive thinking in favor of collaborative survival strategies. Your proposal requires unprecedented cooperation between species with conflicting interests, observed Dr. Korvash. What mechanism would enforce such collaboration? The same mechanism that enabled my recovery, Luna replied. Emotional connection creates bonds stronger than individual self-interest. When beings truly understand each other's experiences, they naturally seek mutual benefit rather than personal advantage. The final test presented Luna with ethical dilemmas designed to reveal the creature's moral reasoning capacity. Dix 1129 describes scenarios where saving one life might endanger many others, where truth-telling could cause harm, where competing loyalties demanded impossible choices. Luna's responses revealed a sophisticated understanding of ethical complexity that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Morality cannot be reduced to simple rules, Luna explained. Each situation requires balancing multiple values while considering long-term consequences for all affected beings. The goal is not to find perfect solutions, but to minimize suffering while maximizing the potential for growth and connection. When presented with a scenario where Luna could save their own life only by allowing others to die, the creature's answer brought tears to Sarah's eyes. If my survival requires others to suffer, then I have already lost everything that makes life meaningful. Consciousness without compassion is just sophisticated selfishness. The testing concluded with an unexpected challenge from Council Member Dix 1129. If you are truly sapient, demonstrate your understanding by explaining why your species was abandoned when you became infected. Luna was quiet for a long moment, their luminous eyes reflecting deep thought and, surprisingly, compassion for those who had caused such pain. My former companions were afraid, Luna said finally. They believed that emotional connection made them vulnerable, so they tried to eliminate all feelings that might cause discomfort. When I became sick, helping me would have required them to experience fear, sadness, and uncertainty. The creature's telepathic voice grew stronger, carrying conviction that reached every being present. They chose perceived safety over love, efficiency over loyalty, logic over compassion. They abandoned me because saving me would have forced them to acknowledge that their philosophy was incomplete. Admitting they cared about me would have undermined everything they believed about emotional detachment. Zix 9471 stepped forward, their translucent features showing emotions that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Luna speaks truth that I was afraid to acknowledge. Our rejection of emotional connection has not made us stronger. It has made us incomplete. We have gained efficiency while losing the very experiences that give existence meaning. A murmur of discussion arose among the observing officials. Several species representatives began debating the implications of Luna's responses, while others questioned their own society's approaches to consciousness and emotion. Dr. Vortex Prime, whose crystalline nature typically prevented emotional expression, surprised everyone by speaking in support of Luna. The subject has demonstrated reasoning capabilities that exceed standard sapience requirements. More significantly, the subject has revealed philosophical insights that challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness. Self, council member, Dix 1129 conferred quietly with their colleagues before announcing their decision. The subject has passed all standard tests for sapience recognition. However, this creates unprecedented complications for our established protocols regarding specimen classification and disposal. Sarah felt her heart sink. Even after proving Luna's consciousness, they were still discussing disposal options. Luna stepped forward, wings spread wide and eyes blazing with determination. I am not asking for your approval to exist. I am offering to teach you something your civilizations have forgotten. That healing requires connection. That strength comes from vulnerability. And that consciousness without compassion is meaningless. The creature's telepathic voice reached every being in the room, carrying emotional resonance that could not be ignored. You can choose to see me as a threat to your efficiency, or you can choose to see me as a bridge toward a more complete understanding of what it means to be truly alive. In the silence that followed, Sarah realized that Luna had done more than prove sapience. The remarkable creature had challenged the entire galaxy to examine their assumptions about consciousness, emotion, and the true meaning of strength. The final decision still lay ahead, but Luna had already won something more important than freedom: the respect and recognition that every conscious being deserved. The Galactic Medical Council's final deliberation lasted 3 days, during which representatives from dozens of species debated the implications of recognizing Luna's sapience. The decision would set precedent for how consciousness was defined and protected throughout the galaxy, affecting countless other beings whose intelligence might not fit traditional patterns. Sarah spent those days working alongside Luna to help other patients, both of them trying to maintain normal routines while their future remained uncertain. The creature's calm demeanor amazed everyone who witnessed it. Luna continued providing empathic healing to those who sought help, approaching each case with the same gentle compassion that had characterized their recovery process. Aren't you afraid of what they might decide? Sarah asked during one of their quiet moments together. Luna's telepathic voice carried serene confidence. Fear would not change their decision, but it would prevent me from helping the patients who need care today. I have learned that the most powerful response to uncertainty is to continue doing what you know is right. Zix 9471 had faced their own crisis during the deliberation period. The Zephyrian High Council had demanded that they choose between their career and their emotional attachment to Luna. In a decision that shocked their entire species, Zix 9471 formally resigned from their research position to become Luna's advocate and companion. Logic without emotion led to abandoning a friend in need. Zix 9471 announced to their people, I choose the path that integrates both reasoning and feeling, even if it cost me everything I thought I wanted. On the morning of the 4th day, Council Member Dix 1129 returned to Sarah's clinic with the Medical Council's decision. A crowd had gathered outside, including patients Luna had helped, supporters from various species, and media representatives from across the galaxy. After extensive deliberation and consultation with philosophical experts from multiple civilizations, Dixie 1129 announced, the Galactic Medical Council formally recognizes Luna as a sapient being with full rights and protections under interstellar law. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Dix 1129 raised their hand for continued attention. Furthermore, the Council acknowledges that our previous understanding of consciousness was incomplete. We hereby establish new protocols for evaluating intelligence that consider emotional capacity, empathic abilities, and collaborative healing as valid expressions of sapience. Sarah felt tears of joy streaming down her face as Luna pressed close to her, the creature's purr resonating with happiness and relief. But the Council's announcement was not finished. The Medical Council also formally recognizes Dr. Sarah Chen's treatment innovations as legitimate medical practice. Dix 1129 continued, her integration of emotional bonding with traditional medicine has achieved results that warrant full scientific study and adoption. Dr. Vortex Prime stepped forward, their crystalline form showing unusual animation. My own species has voted to participate in research into emotional healing. We request that Luna consider establishing a teaching program to help us understand these previously ignored aspects of consciousness. Luna's response surprised everyone present. I will teach anyone who approaches with genuine desire to help others heal. But this knowledge cannot be taken and used. It must be lived and felt. You cannot learn empathy from a textbook or healing compassion from a laboratory. Over the following months, Luna's clinic became a pilgrimage destination for medical professionals from across the galaxy. The creature worked tirelessly to teach others how to integrate emotional awareness into their healing practices. Though Luna insisted that each species must find their own path to empathic understanding. Zix 9471 documented every aspect of Luna's teaching methods, creating the first comprehensive guide to empathic medicine. Their research revealed that emotional connection didn't compromise scientific accuracy. It enhanced it by providing additional data about patient needs that traditional instruments could not detect. We have been measuring only half of the healing equation, 69471 wrote in their groundbreaking paper. Physical symptoms often reflect emotional disruption that cannot be addressed through mechanical intervention alone. Sarah found herself appointed as the first Director of Integrative Medicine for the Galactic Medical Council, a position created specifically to oversee the integration of empathic healing with traditional medical practice. She established training programs that taught healthcare providers to recognize emotional components of illness and incorporate compassionate connection into their treatment protocols. The most profound changes occurred among the Zephyrian people themselves. Inspired by Zix 9471's example and Luna's teachings, a growing number of Zephyrians began questioning their society's rejection of emotional experience. They established support groups where individuals could safely explore feelings that had been suppressed for generations. Efficiency without emotional connection is not strength, became the motto of the reformed Zephyrian medical establishment. It is simply sophisticated avoidance of the experiences that make consciousness meaningful. Luna thrived in their new role as teacher and healer. But the creature never forgot the lesson learned during their darkest hours. No being should face suffering alone, and the strength to overcome any challenge could be found in the connections formed between conscious minds, willing to share both pain and hope. 1 year after Luna's official recognition as sapient, Sarah stood in the expanded clinic watching her extraordinary friend work with a young patient suffering from trauma-related illness. Luna's approach remained unchanged: gentle touch, empathic understanding, and the unwavering belief that every conscious being deserved compassion and respect. "Do you ever regret what happened to you?" Sarah asked Luna that evening as they watched the sunset over New Kepler's crystal spires. Luna's telepathic voice carried deep contentment and wisdom earned through suffering. "The parasites taught me how terrible it feels to be consumed by forces beyond my control. But recovering from them taught me something even more important, that healing shared with others multiplies rather than diminishes. My pain had meaning because it helped me understand how to ease suffering in others." The creature's wings fluttered gently in the evening breeze, filtering toxins from the air with effortless grace. "Besides," Luna added with characteristic gentleness, "without the infection, I would never have met you and Zix. Some of the most beautiful connections arise from the most difficult circumstances." As stars began appearing in the alien sky, Sarah reflected on how profoundly their lives had changed. She had thought she was saving an abandoned animal, but Luna had saved her in return, teaching her that the most advanced medicine in the universe was the simple recognition that every conscious being mattered. That emotional connection enhanced rather than hindered scientific understanding, and that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology, but in their stubborn refusal to abandon those who needed help. Luna had become more than a patient, more than a friend, more than a teacher. Luna had become living proof that consciousness took many forms, that intelligence could not be separated from compassion, and that the universe was vast enough to embrace every expression of aware, feeling existence. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be. Healing, after all, was always about positive change, and Luna had healed more than just their own infected body. They had healed entire civilizations' understanding of what it meant to be truly conscious and alive. In the growing darkness, 3 friends of different species sat together in comfortable silence, their bond transcending every difference that might have separated them. They had proven that the universe's greatest power was not technology or efficiency or logical reasoning, but the simple willingness of conscious beings to care for one another across every barrier that evolution and culture could create. Luna's gentle purr filled the evening air, a sound like distant music that spoke of hope, healing, and the endless possibility for connection that existed wherever conscious minds were willing to reach out and touch another's experience with understanding and love.